4. What is worth fighting for?
1, 2, 3.
Now.
Testing 1, 2, 3. This is weird because remember when we did this in the first episodes and this shit was muted here, but you still got sound over there? Yeah. Now
It's back.
Yes.
I have no idea what's going on over there. Hello, everybody.
yeah. All right. So in 3, 2, 1.
And go.
3, 2, 1. Let's get it, baby. Okay, black screen. Here we are.
Now we're going.
Episode wrap up episode number 21. We have changes. We have to talk about shit. But first,
A word from our sponsors.
Our sponsors are you guys who are always making sure that our voices are synced with the video, because we don't want none of that drama where we talk and the voice is coming out 3 hours later. That would be a pain for everybody. I didn't open any of my chats, so I will do that if...
I think we might have sync issues.
We do, yes.
Ooh, this is so weird because I haven't touched. So I see myself talk and I see it after like 2 seconds on my screen.
Well, we'll get it. We're fixing it.
All right. So right now it's set to -500. If it's awful, I say we plus it. Like 400 milliseconds is probably not going to make a lot of change. The
All right.
pendulum has to swing the other way.
All right. And in the meanwhile,
how is it now? It feels still off, but you know my OBS feed cannot be trusted.
all right. Testing 1, 2, shit. 1, 2, shit.
Penis.
Yeah, always. Okay, I have one chat here.
It's Gucci. Still bad. Okay, well listen.
You guys have to decide.
Take a poll. I can of course also full screen the motherfucker. Full screen the motherfucker.
Do you see it now?
Yes.
That's it. It's good
off.
now.
A little bit off.
Why doesn't it refresh that? So hold up, don't do anything because I have confirmation from Kai, from Arja, from Zap, San. So don't do anything. Are we good?
So it's about a refreshing. I will refresh mine as well, but I do trust you guys. I do trust you guys. I do trust you guys.
You did good, Stan. You did good. You did good, Stan.
Just
Stan,
confirming that
a
little bit off, but I think it may be
confirming that
a little bit off, but I think it may be that's on my end.
Looks good now. So I also have confirmation from Rob. So okay, final call. Is it good now? I mean, is it okay to watch and listen? That's the most important thing, right?
All right. Plus. Yep. Mass echo. No, it's not mass echo.
Okay.
It's because I've turned on the feed. Perfect. Oh, perfect is exactly what we like.
Perfection. Yeah. I mean, it shouldn't be no echo. Oh,
It's because I turned on the feed.
Okay. Sounds like you're in a tunnel. Really? Are you trolling?
No, it's probably because they're behind, and I turned on the volume of the stream so you could hear the echo.
Okay. Maybe refresh the stream, guys. Should be good.
Technical issues are fixed live.
It was because of the echo. Right. I got it. Okay. All right. Thank you so much, guys. Okay, we cannot do this without our lovely chat. Like
As always, listen, it's a work in progress. We are a team.
That's how we do it, like a big team with us and you guys. So, as I was saying, wrap up episode 21.
Oh yeah.
And what we're gonna do for today is actually take into account a couple of the information bits we got from the Ian Hazzikostas interviews from the past week. Specifically in regards to Mythic Plus, because I know a lot of you who watch our content and our streams and whatever are very interested in this, as are we. We also have like a super secret video that our Patreons got to see early access on that addressed not only that but a lot of other things. So we have to go for it. Is the music still on?
The music should be way lower, but I'll turn it off completely now. Yes. Also, if you are on YouTube, I would like to ask you to hit the thumbs up a little bit. It actually helps the stream. It's not something that you have to do normally on a stream, but this is kind of like a video that you're watching on YouTube, kind of like live interaction video. it does help out the stream kind of grow and reach more people, and hopefully we can get a big crowd here.
That's
so
how
you
YouTube
guys can
works.
ask us very inappropriate questions at the end.
And we cannot answer them because YouTube. That's how the censorship works. Okay, so usually we don't have like music in the background for this, so maybe it's did you just kill it off completely?
Yeah, music,
that's perfect.
Music should be totally off.
Yeah, because we want to make sure everything is Gucci. All right. So let me just hit recording because that's important.
That's important. The Alliance Glass will listen if it makes you feel any better.
Oh, this is mine. I'm Alliance at heart. I'm sorry, everyone. I do play Horde because everybody plays Horde and I want to play with people. But I am Alliance at heart. Okay, so cannot. Where are you going? He probably stepped on a couple of cables. We're expecting some electricity surges because of that.
Stream cuts to black.
Yeah. Luckily, we're still here. All right.
There you go. All right. Ching. There you go. Proper representation.
Yeah, I mean, it's all equal, okay? All right. So let's kick it off then, because we have a couple of things to go through. I think one of the more interesting interviews was with the TheComeback Kids YouTube channel, and we are going to go through that. And once again, we're talking about what the information was provided by Ian in terms of like changes to Mythic Plus, and then maybe we can spin some of. Not all, but some of the ideas and not spoil the video as well.
Oh, the video on Sunday, yeah.
We have a lot of we talked about the points you made in the videos in multiple other sessions and other videos. So that basically like it's a very good like wrapped up.
It's a wrap up.
Yeah. So this is from the Comeback Kids, okay? And they talked about a lot of stuff, but most importantly regarding Mythic Plus. So this is from Ian, right? They are looking at smoothing out a couple of pain points. First thing is the jump from plus 11 to plus 12 at the high end is a bit much. To have a better point of entry and on-ramp into the system at low end. And also, coming from devs, many players would look at starting at around plus 6, plus 7, and if you don't know the dungeons, you're not going to have a good time getting into groups or having those groups succeed. They want to make the lower end of the range more rewarding. So that's good, and welcoming as a starting point. They've heard the feedback of it feeling like there's a brick wall where you don't want to do content that isn't going to give you relevant rewards, but you're not experienced enough to succeed in the content that will. So I think it's good that Ian has acknowledged a couple of, because this is like something we have talked about extensively regarding these pain points, and I believe at the beginning of season 1 we talked about people who are coming into the Mythic Plus scene from doing delves all the time and getting a slap in the face because they were expecting probably something similar and of some sorts, but
I guess in terms of difficulty, because delves give you like they kind of give you hero track gear at plus 8, but you cannot do plus.
That's a problem in and of itself, and you address that in the video as well, like with the gear rewards coming from dungeons. But I think like we have noticed this specifically in the first couple of weeks of season 1, where obviously we were mythic raiding and doing a lot of keys and stuff, and we got our gear pretty fast, quote unquote. I mean, we were able to start doing 7s and 8s, and I believe at that point 9s were required to get the mid-track and vault. Then they changed it up to 8s, because they nerfed
mid-track and vault is only from 10s. You're probably thinking of gilded crests that were only dropping from 9s and higher. Now they've lowered the it's and the hero track,
exactly.
That's my coffee.
I'm taking your coffee. That's it. You're not drinking coffee today.
No, I like my coffee.
I'm taking Flame's coffee. Here it is, and I'm drinking mine in the meantime.
Just drink both at the same time. But yeah, I think the myth track reward just remained at 10 in general, and it might have been that the hero track items were lowered down to actually drop at the end of the dungeon in their 7s now. Because I remember they were in the 7s. I think they were like at 8 or 9, and then they lowered to 8, and then now to 7s.
Yeah, you're right. It was with the crest. But regardless, it was still very relevant, because at that point, you remember we talked a lot about people just leaving. And I think a good chunk of those people who were just plain leaving without saying anything after something has been messed up were those people coming from the delves who didn't really understand the social construct of Mythic Plus, who were like overwhelmed with what was happening and they couldn't understand. Maybe they tried to do like a +2, +3, so they did the regular curve. And then they got into a group where it was a +6 or a +7, and they got slapped in the face. This is why I feel he brought up this whole parallel between delves and the +6, +7s.
I think the main problem here is with the way that the reward system is catered, because WoW is a very reward-driven game, and you don't really care at the end of the day. So at the end of the day, it depends on what kind of player you are. Let's say, for the sake of the argument, you're a hero track player. What does hero track player mean? It means you're heroic raider, means you're doing +8 delves. Or maybe you're just doing +8 delves and you're not heroic rating, but you are looking for the hero track gear. And if you are a hero track gear, anything that's not hero track is essentially pointless, because that's how WoW gearing is. So, and you cannot invest in champion track gear. You waste resources and you waste essentially time to either farm the gear or farm the actual resources. So you essentially just want to do the hero track, meaning that if you come from a hero track content like delves, you want to hop into hero track equivalent M+, which that means +7s, which are way harder than the equivalent number of delves, or we could probably say that about raids as well. But I think that problem will always exist so long as we have these gates on gearing, which
it's a different problem.
It's a different problem, but I think it accentuates this because you don't. And we've talked about this in BFA, if you remember, when we had Titan Forging, we have too many different versions of the same item, and it feels like we went full circle and came back to the exact same problem. The problem was addressed differently when this new gearing system was created, but I mean, the way we phrased it, and the way that I remember I had an issue with, is that this item exists in too many variants, and now we have the veteran, champion, hero, myth track, and not to mention with all the upgrades in between. The upgrades in between might not be the actual problem if we didn't have all of these issues, because if a champion piece of gear could be upgraded to hero track through a means, they could figure out a way, maybe cost more crests, maybe cost a special quest or whatever, then that means you can actually do lower end Mythic Plus. You wouldn't feel required to step into +7s directly as a Delve player and essentially just work your way up to that hero track reward, instead of having to feel like you're wasting your time doing champion track content that it's, it comes down with the problems of Mythic Plus that plague the entire system, period.
Yes, and I think like the fact that at least there's a lot of problems with Mythic Plus, but one of the biggest things I think is the rewards, and he does address that, specifically at lower rates of dungeons. Like at the entry point of a lot of people who are playing Mythic Plus, the rewards are not great, and if they're gonna like improve the rewards over there, they're probably gonna like improve on all across the board, right?
You know what's interesting? Just a parenthesis on what you said. This is exactly what created the current Mythic Plus system, because if you recall, the old +2 rewarded veteran equivalent gear back in Dragonflight before the squish, and now the squish rewards champion, and it's still not enough because the baseline problem is still not being addressed. It's still the same issue. We're just like moving the bar left or right wherever it feels better for everybody, but the problem is not actually resolved. So I'm curious to see, because we don't know. We could be wrong.
They just, so this is just bits of information that we're probably going to get a lot more on when the PTR of 11.1 drops, right? And that's like mentioned by Ian at the end of the year, somewhere close to the end of the year. So we're looking
probably after 11.07 launches, I would imagine.
It usually that's kind of the cycle of it. Now, in terms of like the steep difficulty curve from a +11 to a +12, did you feel this like?
I've attempted a 12. It's not the same thing. So
I felt it. I played a 12. It's definitely a different game.
Tested it on beta. It's very different. It's probably deliberate. But once again, we still come down to rewards, because I feel like
he likes his rewards. He wants to be rewarded.
We talk a lot about if WoW is too difficult or WoW is too easy and things like that, which are very relative things. But in the end, people are willing to put up with a lot of shit if they are rewarded fairly for that shit. We can talk about in any aspects of life that you want. Gaming is not excluded. So people are willing to do +12s, and they would probably do +12s if the rewards scaled accordingly. Either the difficulty jumps way too high, which is clearly a thing, but maybe we wouldn't have a problem with this if, let's say, +12s dropped myth tracks, or it dropped... it dropped 30,
Yes!
30 gilded crests per run, so you get at least
more
2
gold.
upgrades. Or that's a personal pet peeve of mine. But it does feel like that, but people wouldn't have a problem with that. But the problem is that it doesn't feel fair, and I think that's where the crux of the issue is. So however way they decide to fix the unfairness, whether it is to lower the gap of the jump between 11 and 12, because
They have to.
if the gap is big, then you can say, okay, it gives you 2 myth track items and the 2,000 gilded crests. The gap is still there, right? So if they want it to be consistent, like, oh, from 10 to 11, it's but from 11 to 12, it's like, right? So they probably want to have a little bit of consistency there.
I like the way you exemplified it.
It's with sound effects.
Yeah, very true, very true. However, I'm pretty sad that in none of these interviews they haven't addressed the overwhelming and quite punishing and almost impossible to stop all of them casts within these
do you know
dungeons.
why?
And it's more like, why, Flame? Tell me.
Because they didn't interview us. Because we didn't interview them, rather.
I see you're flexing a little bit there, Mr.
Well,
Fiverr.
listen, man. Okay.
We would have had the right questions for
probably
you, the
because,
people.
I mean, we kind of talk about these almost every week, or at least every other.
We have,
other
I
week.
think at this point, if we were to go back in time and take at least 7 out of our wrap-up episodes, and I would say 3 out of our, let's say, last 100 videos, we would make an hour about all of the right things to happen with Mythic Plus.
And you know what's funny is that we're not the only ones that are saying this. I'm watching a lot of content creators, like top-end content creators that push keys, participate in MDI, people like Dorky, like Dreadnoughts and stuff, and they say similar things. I'm not going to put words in their mouth, but essentially
They're
people
on the same vibe.
Generically or universally agree that, okay, the learning curve is a little bit too steep, the heroes struggle a little bit too much, the mechanics are a little bit too much, there's a little bit too many casts, and I will die on this hill that I've created for myself for calling it since beta when I said that the meta will be melee because there's way too many casts. And I remember at the time people in chat were saying like, but I've watched this high rated DPS or content creator saying that it's gonna be caster. Yeah, what is your caster meta now, huh? Because if there's 17 casts and you make it even harder to kick all of those casts because your stuns don't do anything, your knockbacks don't do anything because they just recast, then you need even more kicks, and you're definitely not getting your boomies, you're definitely not getting your priests, you're definitely not getting your warlocks. We may have something about this coming in a couple of days, right?
Again, it's about the video that is scheduled for Sunday. But regardless, it is true. And again, I'm sorry that these interviews did not address this, especially because prior to, I would say, the alpha of War Within, we did have a lot of brave, I would say, announcements that they will address Mythic
Oh, we
Plus
had
and
some expectations for sure.
They said they're going to tone down the plates. They said they're going to tone down the abilities we need to watch for and just make it a much smoother experience and actually enjoy a dungeon. I feel right now Mythic Plus is still fun, but it's such a be aware of everything that's happening game that it kind of like removes the soul from what used to make Mythic Plus so much better. It's good now, but it was much better.
Let's put it this way, because we criticize the difficulty of the game a lot and the exhausting nature of having to deal with all of these mechanics and all of these interrupts and all of these utility that we need to do, which is fine. There's plenty of issues there as well. But we're essentially people that kind of like those types of games. You used to play a lot more arenas. That's way more high focused, high intense than any Mythic Plus dungeon.
But it's different impact though.
Yeah, but I'm not saying, but I'm saying like in a vacuum, in terms of difficulty, in terms of like how many things you need to be aware of at once. It's a difficult game, right? The problem is, once again, with how this is applied into the game, like how this affects disproportionate healers.
Okay, let me stop you right here. When did we have the most fun playing Mythic Plus? In what expansion? And don't give me no faded seasons now.
No.
Because
Well,
I can tell you.
I mean,
I'm curious on your side.
Okay, I'm thinking.
Yes.
I don't want to say season 3 of Dragonflight because I feel like that's a cope. I think it must have been BFA.
Exactly. That was what I was going to say. BFA, because you had problematic BFA dungeons.
Yeah.
I mean, Shrine of the Storms, there was some shiz happening there.
Do you remember the beginning of
I remember that dungeon, homie. I remember, okay? When we stood like
40 minutes on the second boss. I was Blood Decay. We were like progging through Nyalotha, and we were getting our first 15 of the season in the first week.
But I think like, so the dungeons, like with all their problems and stuff, I still enjoyed a lot more. I still enjoyed it a lot more in BFA because you played the dungeon more. You weren't this like NASA analyst trying to be aware of
there were definitely not that many mechanics.
Exactly. Like there was like you weren't required to be to pay attention to like 5 million events happening at the same time.
Yeah.
And it was a lot smoother, and you actually enjoyed the context. Dungeons.
Do you know
feels like more of a Mythic raid.
I might risk sounding like a broken record right now, but there are a couple of things that coincidentally were true at the same time. Coinkydink. Do you know that you were actually just playing your class more? Whereas in Shadowlands and Dragonflight, you had to, what I call playing your class is in, engaging with your rotation and doing damage as a DPS or healing as a healer or tanking as a tank. Where as opposed to Shadowlands and Dragonflight, where you had to like break apart that to do affixes, to do sanguines, to dodge, to do explosives. Remember at the beginning of Dragonflight when Paravel, our healer, used to tap target Shadow Word Pain on 17 explosives in a big pool, and that's you not playing your class because you have to do that. And now that switched from doing that to kicking that, stopping that,
dodging
not backing that, popping defensive is still playing the game. But I mean it takes you away from
more. It's a lot more, and it takes you It takes you away from what is important when you play a dungeon, right? Because maybe within a raid, because it's a lot more people involved, the spaces are much bigger, right? You're not necessarily always pulled out of that immersion or that gameplay feel. But nowadays, within a dungeon, you don't really pay attention to what's around you, like actually enjoy what they created, the art team, the sound design, whatever. No, you're so focused on everything that's happening around that, again, I feel the soul out of this fun gameplay loop is like being stripped away.
It's such a good point that you made with the raids, because although they're not a one-to-one accurate comparison, because they're different games.
They're not.
But think about a raid when you use your defensives. You're probably using a defensive once every minute or once every minute and a half, or you might save it for a particular phase depending on your class.
Yeah, when you learn the actual fight.
You take that in a dungeon and you compress it in half that time. You use double the amount of defensives, and a raid boss finishes in 6-7 minutes at most, while a dungeon goes on for 20 more minutes on top of all of that. So
true.
So it's more compact, but it's also stretched out on a longer period of time. And just to stop right now, because you probably seen it
I've seen it, Mr. Alex.
Thank you for the support. Holy shit, dude. 10 gifted subs on YouTube. Thank you so much,
brother.
brother.
Much, Alex. God damn, it's such a generous soul.
I tried to like make it so that
I saw it, but I didn't want to interrupt you. I was waiting for you to finish your point and just blast it. Thank you so much, Alex, and congrats to the people who got the memberships. All right, cool. Awesome.
That was what I was referring to. Plus that, and the fact that in BFA, I don't think they keep this anymore. I think you looted at least one extra item, which you might not think is that big of a deal, but think about it this way. I remember if in BFA, every 5 key levels, you got a guaranteed extra item in the chest.
Yeah, there was something
so you got
that,
like 3 or 4 items at a +10 and potentially 4 or 5 items at a 15.
I don't remember exactly how it was.
I know there was like 20% chance for an extra item per key level, so it would round up to 100% every 5 key levels. And that's you ended up with like gearing your entire party in like 2 dungeons. You would naturally get an item, at least one, maybe 2. Yeah. Now you can do 3 dungeons and still not get any item.
Oh yeah.
So not only
this is the rewards.
In a vacuum, none of these changes is a problem, but when you put them all together, there's just way too much. Dungeons are more difficult. Everything is more punishing. The rewards are smaller, and it takes more rewards to get your character done, which is something that actually we don't go into the video, but it's something that we've been talking about today on stream, and it just reminded me that it feels like a regurgitated topic that we've had in BFA and in Legion with the endless grinding, which now seems to be that you're never really done. It seems we're coming back to the same issue where you don't really feel like you're done with your character. I don't think this is the first season where we're still not fully bissed out. Like how many 10s have we done? And personally, I don't know about you, I am 630, close to 631, and I still have items with half of the upgrades undone yet.
Yeah, me too. I'm in the same exact boat. So,
and I mean, I don't know if that's necessarily a problem, but when we're talking about alt friendliness, war bands, and all of that, it feels like it takes forever for me to finish a character and go to the next one, if this is even the way we're supposed to be playing WoW. But I feel like we kind of need a point where like, okay, I got it, I'm done, I can move on.
I think when we talked about the warbands and we saw what this system is capable of, and Ian always saying that this is just the beginning, it was so refreshing and
it's still
joyful.
So good.
Yeah, exactly. But once again, I cannot shake off this feeling of one step forward, two step backwards. Because on one hand, you have warbands who are amazing, and you do feel like alts are being impacted, but they're impacting to a bottleneck. Because you cannot have alts that are able to do plus 10s like all of them. You can probably go get away with plus 8s, plus 9s, but in order to do plus 10s in time, all the dungeons, you have to like be super invested as always, right?
Okay.
Maybe this is just the beginning, but this is the problem once again: Mythic Plus and gearing.
Sure. So, but that's the thing, right? Are we supposed to even be able to? That's
what they want.
That's
what they want.
That's a good question because it needs to be answered, and it feels like we are not able to do that. So, if it's intended that way, then that means that this has to be reflected in the way that they implement the rest of the systems, which doesn't feel like that's the case. If I'm not supposed to be able to just do plus 10s with an alt after like a day or after like let's say a week, a day is a little bit too generous, but like a week or two after leveling to max, then at least make it. Make plus 10s on my main attainable maybe a little bit quicker so that I can just put the extra time invested in an alt. But I guess we probably go to different topics of like, are we even supposed to have multiple alts? Like when is somebody stopping playing WoW? Does this reflect their engagement
this idea
metrics?
and they want to push on this. So hopefully there's going to be some changes. Let's check out the second interview that I snagged off. This is with Windows Central, which again kind of addresses a couple of things regarding Mythic Plus in the similar fashion. So this is like quoting from Ian Hazzikostas from that interview. On Mythic Plus, I think that this season was a season of experiments. We changed the way affixes work, the way progression is structured, and we have been iterating based on feedback. I don't know about that. They did change the affixes a lot.
To their credit, just before we go after this, they did. They went through the affixes twice, a whole bunch.
Yeah, because you remember that first iteration of holy
Thorns,
moly, yes.
when warlocks were killing themselves because they had dots. And they definitely listened to some of the changes to tanks and healers. Not all, which is weird because it's not consistent across the board. Yeah. Some of them are still stubbornly stuck to.
Yeah, exactly. A big focus for the team right now is to smooth out some particular pain points in specific dungeons, while also looking at class balance. This is the first time he mentions class balance in regards to Mythic Plus. It's interesting because, why wouldn't you get a priest in a Mythic Plus? Because
why would you get a
useless? So it's a lot of that. Now, moving forward, we also don't feel like we have a proper on-ramp into the system. For a lot of players hitting level 8 delves, you're getting very powerful rewards at that point. When you look across from there to Mythic Plus, it can feel there's no point doing anything below a Mythic Plus 7, and 7 up is actually quite hard. Again, he's referring to the people that are, finishing up with the delves tier 8 and actually wanting to get in, right? If you're someone without experience of dungeons to begin with, plus 7 is not the best point of entry. And it certainly wasn't designed to be a point of entry, so we think some players are hitting a cliff wall. It's this one I feel goes a lot more in depth with the explanation, because I feel it's much more clear now.
Yeah.
So we see a lot of people bouncing off that would have previously had a home in early Mythic Plus tiers. So for Season 2, that's one of the big things we're going to address there. It just wasn't something we could change in the middle of Season 1.
That's fair.
The context he put here, so like, why didn't you do these changes already? Well, they did have a lot of changes and experiments to Season 1, and they really didn't want to do it. I understand where he's coming from.
It was a lot. Like, they clearly didn't get the tuning right before the season started anyway, and we had a lot of issues with the release of the season. So adding more on their plate, I can definitely feel like this wasn't this wasn't going to be a reality. What I'm happy to hear is that not only are they aware, because I think they're aware of way more things that they're letting on. There are way more things that they're saying publicly. Yeah. I don't think they're that clueless. I think they pretty much we know for sure that sometimes some devs watch our content, and that probably just means that they watch a lot of content from a lot of content creators. They're pretty in tune with the community. They just probably pick and choose exactly on what feedback to go on, what they think has a higher priority and what does not. What is interesting to see that they're definitely aware of this this disconnected gap between
exactly, because he points it out, right? You have a lot of people that came back for War Within. They did delves, they pushed it to 8, and then as an entry point to Mythic Plus, +7 was awaiting them, like balancing rewards, right?
Yeah.
And as he mentioned it, that was not a +7 is not an entry point.
That's not what you want. There's not, you don't want to do a +7 and here's like, oh guys, this is my first dungeon. So
yeah, exactly. Oh man, that's gonna cause some toxicity and drama and all of that. And I link this to our like vibes and feelings like at the beginning of the season where we had a lot of people leaving and a lot of people not communicating. And I feel, I'm not saying this is the cause, but I think part of it was this. A lot of people trying out Mythic Plus for the very first time and getting so anxious and so overwhelmed, and it was just, I don't want to deal with this. See ya, bye.
We don't know. We do know for sure that at the beginning of the season it was like a record break in terms of how many keys were being done. At least from
it was
the
like
database.
Like we did one
we
wrap
used to
up.
find groups in like 30 seconds.
Instant. We also find, well, more often than in the past, we found tanks and healers.
Yeah.
But regardless, I think like at some point, maybe a month after season 1 launch, something like that, we did that data pooling from Warcraft logs and compared it to like previous expansions, where we saw the number of logs being.
I can tell you right now,
we were putting, it was like almost double.
Over 950,000 Restoration Shaman parses, way more than any other DPS spec. It was the first time that I saw a healer.
In total comparison, like compared to like other expansions, this was like huge. So a lot of people jumped in Mythic Plus.
Yeah, for season 3 in Dragonflight, Reds got 1 million parses about a month or a month and a half into season 3, and that was like past middle of point of the expansion, and it never really grew past that. And every other season had about 300 to 400, maybe 500,000 max parses for one. And I'm talking about just the one spec. Obviously, it trickles down for the rest of the specs, but just to kind of paint a picture. So it was, you could arguably say, it was at least double the amount of keys that we were doing in our best past season. So it's clear that we had a lot of people playing. It's clear that a lot of people enjoyed the content enough to actually do it. And something happened in the meantime. They probably hit that either +7s or +8s, or maybe +7s. Like, okay, this is
that's
no
what
longer
he says.
for me.
There's a huge drop off.
Yeah.
Like at that point, like once people got to that and started dealing with everything that's happening within a Mythic +7 and moving forward, there was a huge drop off. And I didn't look at the logs for the last, I don't know, couple of weeks, but I'm pretty sure they're not lower, a lot lower than what we saw when we did that show and looked at those numbers. Because it has to be. You feel it in looking for group. You feel it in like the presence of players. And you see people like even on the stream and all, or on videos saying like they're done. That's it. It's exhausting. And I hate that it has to come to this. And I feel this is the syndrome of them over complicating all of these dungeons, because you get burned out. As much as we love doing dungeons, and we went through this on almost all seasons, at some point we're just so fed up with it.
Sure. Like, so I don't want to sound like a sim, but I think Asmongold just says it the best. It's over-designed. The game is over-designed. It's just way too much of everything, and it bleeds into a lot of other stuff. And it's not bad to have like a complex video game. We have those. We have probably the best example is Path of Exile. Look at that skill tree. Look how much stuff there is there, right? People still play the shit out of it. Yeah. But it depends on how it's implemented, and it's clear that every time WoW has been super popular, I don't want to say it was when it was easy, but it was when the barrier of entry was very low. Even in patch 8.3 in BFA, when we probably arguably had the best time playing, it was because the corruptions was such a wild influx of player power that you didn't really have to have skill for. Debatable if that was good or not. That lowered the barrier of entry for people, because you could be shit at your spec. If you got a rank 3 Twilight Devastation, you were melting packs. We probably don't want to have that, right? But it's a clear indication that happened again in the season 3 of Dragonflight, where they lowered the barrier eventually by making it the easiest season ever to gear
but that
up.
was due to gear up and also due to the dungeon rotations as well.
Yeah.
It was like they were like
Whatever you
easier,
wanna call
shorter
it, sure.
dungeon. It was a conglomerate of factors that made that season so popular.
Yeah, but overall,
but it confirms
was
basically it reconfirms the fact that you don't need to like overcomplicate things. You don't need to like make this game for the like ultra NASA scientists. Everybody can have fun at the like starting from the lower levels to the utmost highest levels. They're still gonna like if they're gonna go for easier, quote unquote, easier dungeons, more streamlined, I would say, less cast mechanics, things to be aware of, and more of the gameplay. They're still gonna have their MDIs. They're still gonna have the like 0.1 percenters.
People
That's
are
gonna
creative,
be,
yeah.
Yeah, but it's always gonna be a competitive side to it. It's always since the beginning of WoW, the competitive side was there, right? Regardless of how complicated or easy it was. And I can tell you for a fact, WoW was an easy game.
Yeah. This is
Like compared to now, get the fuck out, dude. Like seriously, like looking, like sometimes you look at when people were doing heroic dungeons in, I don't know, Burning Crusade or Wrath of the Lich King or whatever, and you compare what was happening in those dungeons to what's happening now in Mythic Plus. Are you fucking kidding me?
It's the exact kind of comparison that we can actually make right now. We talk about this a lot lately. The Blackrock Death's Raid. On heroic, that's if you really think about it, the mechanics are not hard, but we still wipe again and again after each boss.
They're very impactful.
It's a different kind of difficulty that it's more akin to, let's say, traditional game design, where this is a mechanic you just have to muscle through it either through reaction time or through proper execution or through gear. It now feels like there's no amount of gear you can muscle through mechanics. It just has to be reaction time, weak auras, and you have that times 3 because there's so many just you know, although not everybody Mythic raids, our Overnax progress experience has been a clear indication as to how complex can a fight become in regards to how many external resources you need to be able to.
My God.
Because you can say, okay, you don't need weak auras to deal with parasites or ads, you don't need weak auras to deal with kicks, but when all of them happen at the same time,
that's the thing.
The brain can only multitask so much, and some people can do it without weak auras, but then again, we're designing the game for the very elite people that are, you know, very sweaty, let's say, that can do that. That's
fine.
And that just
fine.
alienates a lot of the player base.
If you can achieve that goal of designing it for the quote-unquote elites, but without making it to be mandatory to play with weak auras, then you have a win. But I mean,
you know what?
The weak auras we use is the liquid of weak auras. I mean, they did it. To do
big boys.
that boss, they had to custom weak auras.
There were some 500 IQ brains over there, but I remember a time where, let's say, if the elite gamers in a particular game would end up doing crazy shit, like speed run a whole game in 20 minutes when for us it takes us 50 hours, right?
Clever use of game mechanics.
That would be an example of the elites breaking the game and being very successful at the game. Now it feels like if you acquire elite level skill, you can clear the game. You cannot do any crazy stuff. That's where the tuning of WoW feels to be right now, where if we take a comparison with Dark Souls, where an elite player would be able to solo the entire game naked with no gear, now you would have to get the best gear and you might be able to solo the game. So that's how the Mythic rating feels like it's tuned right now, which maybe that's great, but I feel like that doesn't leave room for awesome stuff to happen. Like how in Warlords of Draenor, there was a Blood Decay that was soloing world bosses while they were live. That was a cool stuff. Or Rex Troy, with how many times he broke the game and caused patches of class balance to happen.
What happened to him? Because
I haven't seen anything, but those kind of things make a game cool, because even if 90% of us were never going to be able to do that kind of stuff, we look at it as like, oh my god, this dude can go as a Destro Warlock in Orgrimmar and fire 30 Chaos Bolts and kill 30 people at once. That is some gnarly stuff, man. But I feel like the safer we go and the more we balance and the way we tune this game, we eliminate those things from ever happening, and it becomes a safe game, very highly tuned, where the elite will never be able to excel and be awesome, but they just might be able to clear the game. And if that's was that what you need to clear the game, then for us we need 10,000 weak auras. We need 2 extra months, which, you know, we shouldn't be able to clear the raid like the race will first do. That's fine, and we don't have to do it fast. But having to need so many crutches, so many stitches to be able to do it, just takes away some fun aspect of the game, and definitely raises the barrier for everybody else to go in and actually play the video game.
True. Now, imagine everything we talked about being applied to the new dungeons that
Bing,
await
bing, bing,
us.
bing, bing. What do we got? What do we got?
The new dungeon. So we have the complete list now for
Yeah.
all of the dungeons, right? Okay, so let's take them one by one. All right. So Cinderbrew Midray. I kind of like this one. It felt like a little bit shorter, and the reason I really like it is because
The first pull.
Yes.
Huh? Yeah, I knew you were gonna say that. That was exactly what I was gonna say.
But it's still a short dungeon. I feel it's a short. It's only 3 bosses, if I'm not mistaken,
Sure.
and it's like easily traversable. So it's. I think this is gonna be one of the quote unquote farm dungeons.
It's a good dungeon because it also gives you pathing options. You can go
Yep.
either left or right after the first boss. So
Which
it
I
gives
love.
you, like it feels like Grim Battle definitely linear, Dawnbreaker definitely linear. I thought that Dawnbreaker would offer us more ways to approach dungeon, but it's becoming very cookie cutter.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I know a lot of people hate Dawnbreaker. I personally like it, but I'm kind of getting tired of it as well, to be honest. And I think it's good to like have dungeons like now Mists of Turnasite, where it's like easy, smooth through, no problemo. Having Cinderbrew Midray finally get into it, I think this is gonna be our Mists of Turnasite.
Sure, that would
if
be
it's not, because there's still some crazy ass mechanics over there, and we don't know how those are gonna scale to Mythic. You know what I'm
Not as
talking about.
crazy as the next one that's coming.
Oh no, we're gonna get okay. So you want to jump to it? All right. So Darkflame Cleft.
Oh boy.
Okay,
This
so-
is so everybody obviously says the most obvious stuff about this dungeon. I actually hope that it goes live because it's gonna be one crazy shitstorm.
Dude, that's true, and I'm almost convinced it's gonna be a shit show at launch. Okay, I'm almost convinced.
I'm
okay?
90% sure it's gonna be vastly changed from what we've played in the beta.
I hope so, man. Because like I think like the biggest problem with this is the actual. You know that part where you jump into the cart and you have the thing follow you.
Yeah.
So there's 2 things here. Either you put a generous timer on that bitch, or
Yeah.
you just completely remove that part, because that doesn't make it like. I mean, it's fine when you do it on heroic, M0 maybe, because that's the fantasy of whatever.
Okay.
If you want to push that key, that will be just an
thing is-
annoyance.
So the thing is that is very scripted, and it doesn't even matter how many dynamites you throw at the boss. At least
Yeah,
it doesn't
matter.
So that doesn't last longer or shorter depending on what you do. It always lasts the
Yeah,
exact
but
same amount of time,
it's-
so that can affect.
It will affect the timer.
That's
all
fine,
I'm
but
saying.
they can just
Kill it.
They've
Stop it.
They've increased the timer of the dungeon, and that's fine. That's not the problem. The problem is getting there. Because getting there and the last boss mechanic, it depends on how this translates. Because
The one
getting
with
there,
the light and dark, right? Where
Yes.
you have to get the candles and stuff.
because in the last
That's
boss
gonna be
mechanic,
fun.
you have to pick it, you have to drop it, you have to pick it, you have to drop it to maximize the time that you spend in the light. And if you go a little bit too out of the light, you will do 99% less damage. So that's and if the tank does that, the tank does no threat on the
threat?
boss,
Oh
and
my
then just kills
God,
everybody. And then you have a lot of mechanics that will probably happen, plus probably the affixes that we will have. Plus, this means that somebody in the party has to do that. And we go back to not being able to play your class, which wouldn't be a problem if we didn't have 17 mechanics.
Other mechanics happening at the same time. Exactly. So yes, we are worried about the Darkflame Cleft in Mythic Plus. Hopefully they will address a lot of these things in Season 2. Now, the Rookery. We did a lot of the Rookery at the beginning of the expansion.
I so don't want to jinx it, but this feels like it's going to be a very good dungeon since it didn't feel
Again, another
like
short one, I feel.
Yeah, that's so I'm talking about once again about the pool sizes. I feel like since I've been tanking, maybe I'm a little bit biased towards this, but as a tank, it's so boring to pull 1 or 2 packs because there's not much to do except just hit your AoE once or twice every 5 seconds, and that's it. You don't really do much of else. You kind of feel like you want to pull more. The cool part about Rookery is that when we tested it on beta, there weren't mobs that would be stopping you from doing big pulls, as opposed to Cinderbrew Midray in the first pull that's very famous for having like crazy DPS numbers. There are mobs that constantly throw little abilities that stun you, and they do quite a little bit of damage. Normally on beta, whenever we did that, like 2 hits would probably kill you. It's probably going to scale even higher on live, depending on how they're going to be addressing the dungeon scaling. So those will be the critical mass point of no return, wherever if you pull 1 or too many of those, it will completely wipe you, meaning that you're just not going to be able to pull a lot if they do decide to tune it that way.
All right, we have Alex once again.
Alex with a super chat.
With a super chat. Love you guys. Thank you for bringing into attention the ways our game can get better. So healthy to raise things like this. Going to Cry in a corner as I just finished my 8+6 without an item. Oh my god, man! I feel sorry for you, man. But yeah, appreciate your generosity, man.
We can never complain now. 8 dungeons without an item.
God damn, man. This is a symptom of the problem.
The RNG, the lack of deterministic rewards, which we also addressed in our...
Yeah, deterministic rewards is an important topic which Flame very accurately describes as a solution in the future of WoW. The video is going to be this Sunday. Okay, so Rookery, I don't think you're going to jinx it. I think it is going to be one of the better dungeons to run. I think it's going to be more or less similar in speed and timers as Cinderbrew Mythic, but we have to talk about Priory of the Sacred Flame. Do you see so many flames put into here?
People love me, or I have no originality when picking my name. One of the two.
All right.
Go with the former.
So Priory of Sacred Flame. Now, we kind of like speculated this is going to be with a different type of patch, with Hollowfall Empire. No, that turns out not to be the case. Okay, well, I was wrong. I fully take accountability for that. Now, where I see here a problem is with the trash bags when you go inside and you have those...
You mean the ones that kept wiping us?
Exactly, Flame. Do you remember?
That might actually turn the meta into range meta, by the way.
I don't know, man. All I remember is like whenever you were tanking, or I was tanking, or RJ was tanking, or Mogi, there's those guards. I cannot remember the name that put this debuff on you. That chunk the hell out of your health, and that was in fucking heroic M0s and stuff.
I don't remember a particular debuff. What I do remember
when you're inside, like it has this icon from like a Crusader strike or something. And I was healing and seeing that shit, and every tank that was doing it was taking so much damage, it was ridiculous. And all I'm thinking about the nerfs to healers and tanks and that debuff. Get the fuck out! I'm not healing that.
On top of that, what I also remember is all the paladin mobs that drop consecration, that you can 100% not stay in. And you have to constantly move the pack. There are those that do the I think they do the divine hammer spinny thing. I think that's just the boss.
That's the boss.
That's probably just the boss. Yeah. But there are those that there's the let's call it, in terms that we can understand, the priest mobs that cast smites and greater heals in the back, and you have the paladin mobs that cast consecration. So what you have to do is take the whole pack and constantly move it. Guess what? You're not going to have enough kicks for the priest in the back to constantly move it with the pack.
Welcome to Mythic Plus.
So what you're going to probably do is not invite any mages, warlocks, and anything that can put something on the ground that has to stay in that ground. That's not gonna be there since nothing is gonna stay in anything. Oh, DKs too. I guess Frost DK might get a pass, but Unholy's probably gonna hate its life because nothing's gonna be in Death in Defile ever. Yeah. That's one problem. And there's just so many casters in Priory of the Sacred Flame that it's not, and a lot of them are immune to crowd controls, which it's a whole... I think Priory of the Sacred Flame, if they don't address these issues, might actually come out and put new issues on the table, which were always issues, which means way too many casters.
Which means more wrap-up shows.
Yeah, that's fine for us. Content. But I think that's probably going to change. We'll see exactly how it plays out, because they've made changes like these even in Dragonflight. If you remember, I don't know if you do remember, but Brackenhide Hold in the first season was... Hollow was kind of like a joke dungeon until it became a seasonal dungeon.
Until it became a problem.
Yeah. So they changed the way the mechanics
they actually nerfed Brackenhide a couple of times.
They also nerfed it after that for sure.
Yeah.
But remember how they changed, because we're probably going to get to the Battle for Azeroth dungeon and the Legacy dungeons as well. They usually make tweaks to these when it comes to Mythic Plus to kind of more accurately align them with their philosophy of the current Mythic Plus season.
The problem is they always do these after the fact. And we know, because we do these keys on PTR all the time and feedback the shit out of it, and nothing happens. They go live like that, and then in a couple of weeks' time, they start nerfing the shit out of them. So that's the problem.
Yeah.
Okay, you mentioned Battle for Azeroth. I think this is one of my favorite dungeons in BFA, the Motherlode.
Good times.
I mean, okay, it's going to be way different than when we remembered it.
Because if it's not, then it's going to be old school dungeons, and they don't like that.
But it's not old school, man. You cannot call this old school. This is part of modern WoW.
No. Old school. Okay, so...
I mean, if they're going to add new things to interrupt spells and to stop mechanics, I'm going to kill myself.
I was amazed.
Don't kill this dungeon for me, Blizzard, please.
You probably don't remember, but I was a main tank at the end of Battle for Azeroth. So the way I used to play this dungeon is pull the first pack and the second and the third and the fourth and the fifth and the sixth and go after a corner, put Death and Decay with Grip of the Dead there. Everybody was slowed and you would fight about 30 mobs at once. Do you think that's going to make it into the live season?
I don't think so. I don't think so. But it was a super fun dungeon, and of course it's very in theme with the Goblin theme of
They would have had to put it, yeah, for sure.
It had to be done. One of the coolest things of this dungeon was, I think, the first boss. That was with the soccer ball.
That was such a cool
that was
mechanic.
such a inventive
People are gonna
way.
wipe like crazy.
I
on
cannot
that
wait to see that happening.
Kicking the ball wrong, taking all the frontals. It had some like crazy healing mechanics that needed to be healed.
There was that AoE. I don't know if he stomped the ground or whatever, and you jumped off. That was like AoE all around.
Yeah, as a tank, you had to constantly move it around. So there was back then healing wasn't as difficult as it is now, but that was a difficult healing thing to do. And if you translate it in today's healing, it's gonna suck.
So it's gonna be interesting to see. I'm just praying that they're not gonna butcher this dungeon and add more stuff to it, because I'm gonna be pissed and do a video about it. Now, in terms of Operation Floodgate, we have nothing. We have no information. We don't know the routes. We don't know the mobs. But I would feel it's gonna be something.
It's a modern dungeon. It's probably gonna be in theme with the War Within. It's probably gonna have a lot of mechanics.
I see it's gonna be in theme with. Motherlode, yeah, because so? I mean it's there. It's the same thing.
I meant more in the systematical design of it, with 3 different casts per pack with 2 extra stuns and a tank buster. So
the usual classic formula for a Mythic Plus dungeon in World of Warcraft. All right, but we do have Theater of Pain.
This is an interesting choice
coming to. Listen, man, I kind of like Theater of Pain in Shadowlands.
I do want to come meet the people halfway that liked the Shadowlands as an expansion. I do have to agree that
Shadowlands as a hold up. I just said Theater of Pain.
Yeah.
Who loved Shadowlands?
I'm getting to that. There's some people. Listen, you can enjoy what you enjoy. No judgment here. But the dungeons were really good in the way that they were designed. The theme of it all being sort of around, death concepts, it's a hit and miss. But the actual mechanics, the pacing, the pathing of the dungeons, what you had to do, they were really good. It was really fun to do dungeons in Shadowlands.
Yes, I agree.
At least for us,
I agree.
At least, and especially for me, because I cannot talk for you. But when it went to shit, it's kind of the only thing that kept us going, man. Because the rating was a little bit off.
Yeah. Everything we did, I think we did more dungeons in Shadowlands than we did ever in WoW. And Alex just tipped another
oh my God, dude!
super chat. Yo, remind people to like the live stream. That's true.
That's true.
That's true. Guys, if you're watching on YouTube, hit the like button. It really helps us out and pushes the stream to even more people, so even more people can enjoy the chat.
300 viewers on YouTube. It's cranking.
Oh my God! All right.
Wow.
Welcome everybody. Hope you're enjoying this. Now. Thank you, Alex, once again. What a chat! Like he's Romanian.
It's a boy.
Like, at some point in your life, you're gonna come to Brasov. Make sure you get in touch. We're gonna grab a beer and get drunk and talk shit.
You need to drive.
But back to Theater of Pain. I think for the most part, you mentioned the theme of Shadowlands. This was but this was basically like the Necrolords, right?
Yeah.
This is basically their zone over there. The whole. What I remember in Theater of Pain is always being on edge on the last boss. Always trying to make the timer for the last boss. If I'm not mistaken, the last boss on this was when you actually get back out, and it's what was it? The lady thing. There was
the mad
something, but and that was. I don't remember.
Sure.
But it was in the center of the arena, back up there, and there was a couple of mechanics over there that
they were pretty.
They were intense. They were intense back then.
We used to get the shades that had to spawn that we had to AoE down, and she was doing this suck and pull into a big AoE
and some nice cone damage that would get a lot of people one shot. Mokti was a lot of times one shot by that shit. I have footage to prove. He was a champion on that. Wasn't Theater of Pain the one where you had to the duel thing?
Yes.
I think this was it, right?
Yeah.
Another interesting and cool mechanic, not super impactful, but
people gamed the shit out of it.
Of course, because it's not
just
PvP.
let yourself loose.
It was okay, who's the better DPS here? Who has the more?
Who's taking the PI?
Yeah, you sit down, and I'm gonna wing, so I'm gonna pump that damage.
You're gonna want Augmentation Evoker for that to take the L, so that you can get giga boosted once you guys get out. Both Augmentation and the PI and the buff from the duel is gonna crank.
And that's how you establish meta. All right. I'm personally excited for Theater of Pain. I'm interested to see how they're gonna make it work.
I'm actually curious for sure to see how they implement it.
Yeah, I don't think they're gonna have much to ruin. I already feel it was pretty much a difficult dungeon to begin with. If they're gonna add even more casts and abilities, well, then fuck you. All right, a returning dungeon. This has been in
a very recent one.
Yeah, workshop. I think we had it at the end of Shadowlands in the Fated season.
Yeah. We had like 2 mega dungeons, if I recall. In the Fated season.
I think we had workshop, we had junkyard, and we had
the 2 Tazavesh dungeons.
Tazavesh, we had the Grimrail. Yeah. So we had both of them, but this is returning. So
I expected one of them to come. I would have expected Junkyard because it feels like we've had Workshop a little bit too many times, way more than Junkyard. But maybe I'm mistaken.
Wasn't Workshop and Junkyard in season 4 of Shadowlands at the same time available?
But I think we had a Workshop before that. Well, anyway, I might be misremembering.
I just feel that
this is the worst one of the two, by the way. Especially
I rather play Junkyard.
Yeah, Junkyard was really cool because it was kind of all outside. It felt a little bit more open. It felt like, once again, you had more pathing. It's Mechagon maybe, Workshop rather, maybe feels more in touch with the whole Undermine situation where you're like inside. So it's another inside dungeon. Okay, I guess. I kind of want a little bit more outside, to be fair.
Yeah, you're getting claustrophobic a little bit.
And the last boss is so brutal.
Is the last boss the one with the spinning wheels and the...
Yep. It's the big robot with the constant frontals that you had to like dodge. Everybody had specific positions.
Also, there's that one, but also isn't the one where you have like little flames and robots and like little...
the boss also, that kept...
That's going to be like...
rotating flames and the cogwheels.
Okay, we're going to get fucked. Okay, because this was...
And not in a fun way.
This was already problematic in the Fated seasons. Now, with the whole...
That was actually the harder boss of the whole dungeon.
That's how I remember it. I feel like, okay, the last boss was problematic as well, but I feel a lot of times we died.
You could muscle through it. It was very punishing and very hard to heal, but you could still muscle through it.
Yeah, you could still push through it. Now, the same issue and concern remains here. Are they going to add even more things to Workshop? Because, okay, now, to bosses, I feel it's pretty hard to add more stuff, to be fair. I mean...
so this is a good discussion because we can cross-references with the legacy dungeons that we have right now because Mists of Tyranid sites, definitely Grim Batol have way more mechanics than they had in the day.
Well, Grim Batol had to have it because Grim Batol, like, if you just take it at face value, Cataclysm...
It was that. We can say the same thing about Vortex Pinnacle and Throne of the Tides that we had in Dragonflight. But even Mists of Tyranid site, the last boss was changed. Remember, it didn't used to be that way.
Oh my god, they changed it to hell, and I hated them for that. That was
and that
ridiculous.
was a more recent dungeon.
Okay, now that you mention it, that's a good point. They're probably going to change the shit out of all of them.
That's why I mean that...
Fuck!
We're fucked! Are not... I don't know what they're going to do to the bosses in Workshop. To be fair, the whole concept of... And this is why I'm actually personally excited about Undermine as a content. They can do wacky things. Like, even with Workshop, the mechanics are wacky. The last boss has a big mech suit that slams its fists on the ground, and it has a magnet that pulls you in, and occasional little doom zones where you die. So it's all gnarly, all cool. And even with the Mythic, with the Tyranid Scythe, the changes to the last boss to Tredova are crazy punishing, but they're fun mechanics, right? So I'm curious to see how they will alter this all again. Well, you know, it's not fun to heal, but...
Oh my god. Healers, I always pity the healers on the last boss because it's ridiculous.
But the last boss also has like problems with... And this has to be addressed somehow with invisible puddles, with bug puddles, where you would take damage from puddles by not being in the puddles.
Yes.
And I've seen your unholy footage. Do you know that Defile obstructs all of the puddles? They do. It sucks.
Do I know? Do they know? Because I always complain about Defile, and it's becoming a very much how do you call it? I am becoming a very good psychic. Like I try to sense
Nostradamus.
I try to sense where shit is on the ground, and I constantly move. Maybe I get lucky and
spatial geometry in your head is like, this is the right circumference for a little puddle to come through, and I have the 2 centimeters to the right space enough to be in.
You see me move all the time. Yeah. That's why, basically, because you're in the file. It happens.
It's unreal.
It happens.
It's a whole different World of Warcraft game, I gotta tell you guys.
Okay, well, we'll not get into that, but still. So this is like the final list of the Mythic Plus Season 2 dungeons, and I don't know about excitement. I'm excited for the actual War Within dungeons. I'm not that excited for a couple of the dungeons that are coming back.
I'm curious to see what they do with the Floodgate. It would be the second dungeon release in an expansion.
And it's going to be a normal dungeon, by the way. I mean, classic. No, it's not going to be a mega dungeon. So that's
normally we would have had these halfway through the season come as a mega dungeon with extra loot. Now it's just going to come as a full-on straight. And I don't think was it Legion the last time we got a dungeon at the release of a patch. Did 7.1 come with anything new? I don't remember. No, we had 7.2 with Cathedral of whatever it was. The Darkness, the Broken Shore one. Yeah, so it's been a while. It's been quite a while.
We'll see how that pans out. But we're not done yet, homie.
Oh, there's more?
Ian has been addressed regarding the gearing system and more specifically currencies and such. Now, you would think he would admit some things and talk about whatever, but let's just go through
my God,
all right? Because we talked about gearing quite a lot today, and let's just see how this episode. This is from the same interview on Windows Central.
Sure.
Just quoting him over here. The Mythic Plus Crest gearing system meets almost all of our design goals, save for that clarity and intuitiveness, which I agree. It's not intuitive and it's not clear at all.
Sure.
Especially for new people. Now, for us, for me, for you guys, it's okay. But talking about new people, that is one area we want to focus on in terms of naming them, tutorialization, and so on.
Isn't it interesting that we've addressed this very exact point a bunch of times in the last 6 months?
I think we also addressed this in our interview with him.
Yeah, I was trying to think back at it because we did,
but he didn't give us this. His answer back then was like, "There's always room for improvement, and we're gonna keep iterating on the system."
I mean, if you don't have anything concrete, you have to say that, and that's fair.
Yeah, we want to make it more logical about what should you be doing with crests. Okay, now let's go a little bit further. The idea is to give players of all playstyles goal to work towards, with ongoing power advancements beyond specific item drops. Crests are an important part of the tiered structure of World of Warcraft, helping sure that the best way to get stronger is to push into harder content, rather than just grind basic content massively, as we saw previously with artifact powers and things like that. Okay. You should want to complete higher tier dungeons, but making it clear on how to get there is something we want to address. So what do you think from this, Flame? Do you think he realizes the actual problems? Okay, I'm not saying these are not problems. Clearly they are. But I
feel like he's dodging the real problem here. Maybe this is just my bias, and I don't want to insert my bias too much because I feel like I've been doing that lately in the last couple of weeks.
Put that bias in, Flame. Put it in.
My bias is that in their efforts to make the gearing more straightforward, they're still going to keep the gated tiers of gear, which I think is the real problem, and we will make it a little bit simpler, but the problem will still be there. And once they've implemented the fixes of maybe, let's say for the sake of it, they will be calling it hero crests and myth crests and champion crests and val. Let's say that's what they're going for, so that it's clearly and intuitive to address exactly what items they're supposed to be fixing, or maybe they're going to name them based off of the content that they're dropping, heroic crest or mythic trek crest or normal crest or whatever, right? Whatever name they choose to make it intuitive and make it have sense so that people know what they're supposed to be doing, it's still going to leave the items be bracketed and gated into their respective tiers, which I think is still going to be a problem, and it will still make farming harder content hard. So the way the reason why I'm skeptical about this, because what does he say here? That he wants people to want to do harder content, which is fair. That's definitely what you want to do. But I feel like that's never going to be realized until they break this barrier. I feel like that's never going to be realized until, my personal bias is, you can transform a champion track item into a hero track item. You can so what I mean by that, let's say it takes Gilded Crest to get from 5 out of 6 hero track to 6 out of 6 hero tracks. You should be able to get it from 6 out of 6 hero track to whatever myth track equivalent would be. I think that's 2 out of 6 or 3 out of 6 myth track. It's already so convoluted, see? And what you need to get through that should be something currency drops that drops from Mythic track equivalent content, like Mythic raids or plus 10s or whatever you want to call it, right? But that should be possible because I don't feel like I will ever be incentivized to farm harder and harder content until I can transfer a shit item into a good item by doing that said harder content. And I don't think that's going to happen. That's just going to still be the same thing. It's just going to be a little bit more intuitive. So I'm curious to see how they're going to be implementing this.
Well, it's a first step, I would say. So I'm very copy here. Okay,
Sure.
It's a step-by-step situation. In an ideal world, what you said, like transforming an actual champion into like hero and so on and so forth, that's something that could potentially be happening maybe in 11.2 or maybe next expansion. I don't know how much tech is behind this in the sense that it can be changed quite easily around the go, or does it take a lot of time to actually implement a new version of the system where it's much more
I'm going to tell you right now,
streamlined?
it's already in the game. Whenever you upgrade an item, even in the from 1 to 6 hero track, it will at 5 out of 6 hero track, I think it turns into a mythic item. So it changes appearances into that mythic equivalent of that item. So the tech and the coding in there to associate this ID of an item to this ID of an item to a mythic version of that item is already in the game because it changes its appearance. It just doesn't change its tooltip. But that is already there. They just need to make it change its tooltip because I think the fundamental problem in an MMORPG is that I loot the Arakara sack brute, but there's 5 different Arakara sack brutes. And no matter how
it's the
intuitive...
example you gave for the Diamond Force.
Yeah.
You're farming the same item over and over again, but different versions of it.
No matter how easy and straightforward you make it upgradable, it's still going to be replaced with the same item, just at a higher track. Whatever you call those tracks, that barrier will still be there. So the whole concept of pushing harder content is relative because if you can push your harder content, you're already looting that Arakara sack brute at the track that you wanted. So it's a little bit redundant. It depends on how they implement it.
Yeah, man, I hope we're not coming across as like ultra negative about the game.
No.
I mean, in our opinion, we're given like our super constructive criticism or whatever feedback on what we think it's like problematic, right? But we still love the game. Well, I think like just want to like disclaim this, like we played the game every day. we raid, we Mythic Plus, and putting aside all the YouTube content and all of that, I feel the game right now, even with all of the shit we're talking about and the feedback we're trying to give out, I think it's in a really good state.
It's in the best state that it's been probably since
in a while. In a while, for sure. And I just feel it's a shame they didn't capitalize enough on that, to be fair, because War Within had such a good momentum. Like once that people started to play it and get into it, the story, beginning of the season, all of that, and they could have addressed a lot of these pain points back then.
That's the sad part because it feels like the momentum is lost based off of points that we've been... the community has been making for years. Because people have been complaining about the gearing, the difficulty, the mechanics. I've been complaining for years, not everybody equally, but it feels like such a shame. So many people come in and they fall off because of the same things that haven't been addressed yet. Maybe we're wrong, but I mean the numbers don't really point into that direction so far. So who knows?
Yeah, one of the I would say better perspectives here is that as opposed to like times where we complained or had feedback for the game, Shadowlands time, BFA time, or Dragonflight time, I'll say Dragonflight a little less, but it's definitely clear now that they're much more open to communication, to like listening to feedback, to being aware of it, to like actually, I mean, I always bring this up, and I sometimes go back and watch the interview Preach had with Ian in regards to patch 9.1.
Oh my God.
Where he was so stubborn with everything that Preach tried to tell him, like, dude, this is not good, it's not perceived well. It's very different now. Like even in our interview with Ian, he didn't like back off. Like even like the 6-player Mythic Plus thing, he didn't like completely rejected it. He tried to get some context for it. Explain like how that will change everything. So it's a very, you can see the shift in how they address this, right? I generally feel they care much more about the community or what the people are saying, reading forums, Reddits, feedbacks, all of that, videos, streams, all that. They're much more aware. Maybe they were aware in the past, but they never acted on it at the level they. So this is why I'm saying
it feels like you want to feedback more now that you know that they're listening to it more, and you might actually have an impact on the game, at least from a positive perspective. anyway.
Yeah.
And we actually called out these kind of changes ever since Azeroth Mortis, where we felt the shift in their mentality slightly, and the shift has been shifting ever since for like 2 expansions straight, and now we have the game that we have today, which is almost unrecognizable for what was like 2 expansions ago.
This is the thing, right? A lot of people forget like how bad it was at some point in Shadowlands specifically, and I remember a lot of people complaining still in BFA, rightfully so.
Island expeditions, warfronts.
Yeah, but people still play the hell out of it. Granted, that was the expansion that caught us mid-virus, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people stayed in home, and then there was a lot of like people playing, but complaints were still there. People will always complain about shit. I feel like for folks who like, again, I'm trying to think about that interview where he said that a lot of people dropped off coming from Delves and getting into Mythic Plus. I think that's so important, because if you're acknowledging that, and
it's
if
a
you're
very specific thing to be publicly aware of it, because they probably know a lot more stuff, but to say it publicly, that means that they're definitely going to act on it.
Let me tell you something. If we would have logs for Delves, I can guarantee you the numbers would have been astronomically higher than all the Mythic Plus and raids. I
think so?
Yeah, because you have to be aware, like the biggest crowd that plays this game is not us.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's like
we're in the fifth. We're barely half.
I don't even want to I don't want to ballpark it, but I think why he mentioned that is because they saw how many people got back into the game or tried the game for the first time. They saw that they started with Delves because they advertised the shit out of Delves. In some capacity, it was like the feature.
It was the bet. So what they did at the beginning of the season, where they gated gear from Mythic Zeros and Heroics and stuff like that, just to promote gearing from those, was brilliant.
Yes.
Because not only would new players come into the game and see, oh, Mythic Plus isn't available, but this whole other thing is available. But they also saw people like us who normally probably wouldn't do Delves Delves as well. And they're like, oh, but everybody's doing this whole new content. Let's do this new content, right? So that was very brilliant.
Everybody and their moms was doing Delves because it was like for the people like us. There it is. Where is the phone, Flame? Where is it in your? That's the published video alarm.
That's my eat your last meal of the day, which is clearly out the window now.
Well, it's gonna happen.
No
later
food
on.
for me.
You remember they did a very similar thing at the beginning of season 1 of Shadowlands with arenas, and everybody was doing arenas. because
when
of the
they would increase the gear rewards.
And they added they brought back the vendor.
Yeah, they did it first for PvP. We didn't have that for PvE yet.
Yeah, exactly.
And everybody was like,
This
is so fucking hilarious, man. Whenever they do thing that we asked, like you see this surgence of people that just flocked with like flies to shit, and they just played the crap out of the game, even though it kind of ruined PvP for PvP players. Everybody was like, I don't care, just give me that gear, bro. And then they added the fucking vendors for PvE, and everybody was doing dungeons left and right. Funny how that fucking works, ain't it?
Okay, we have another super chat from Alex.
Concert PTSD. Fuck, people know, man. People know now.
They know because I believe Talis and had a chat about
it's fine,
it.
Listen, I'll take it on the chin.
It's nothing to be ashamed of. You know, at the very least, I feel like, listen, man, that was an alarm to publish a video. God damn it!
Yeah.
So it's a very important. Thanks a lot for the super chat, homie. Once again. But yeah, getting back to it, it's like when things like this happen, it's like incentivizing Delves. Why were they incentivized? Well, it was the rewards. Once again, it was the gear. Incentivizing arenas. Well, there was the rewards.
And once again, it all revolves. People are able to do a tremendous amount of bullshit if they get rewarded fairly for it. So it all comes down to what you get from what you do.
Exactly. But this is pretty much wrapped up, I would say, because
we touched on some buttons.
We did, but it was like bound to happen, and it was all due to like the information that got out due to the interviews Ian had. It's not satisfactory per se, but it is promising in the sense that they are acknowledging a lot of the problems, and it's like baby steps.
I think it's not satisfactory since we don't know for sure what their solution intent is, but I think it's satisfactory from a different point of view that they're so open to having a very flexible solution that they cannot publicly say what the solution is, since they're so open to the player feedback the way that the affixes were in Mythic Plus. Like prior to Alpha, the World Within releasing, Ian couldn't have said we're gonna have these orb mechanics and this heal absorb mechanic and Xal'atath will pop up. He didn't say that, but he did say that we're gonna have some changes to affixes, because the first version, he could have said we're gonna have thorns as an affix, and then turns out that it was complete shit. So now they're just gonna.
But also, it was a community uproar when they first announced that. So it was interesting to me because they changed that so fast. It's like, okay, you do have the power to change it fast. Is there some sort of like weird decision making over there where, okay, we have the manpower and tech to change things really fast, but the decision is not to do so because
that it wasn't even the first time. If you think back to the season 1 of Dragonflight, season 2 just completely removed the seasonal affix, which was a big change from from the season.
Yep.
And then we started to really lose the old school affixes, explosives, and I think necrotic was probably removed before that, but we lost eventually. What else did they take away? Bolstering or something? They took away, or no, they changed raging. From just being super enraged and soothable to not to being immune to kicks and CCs, if I recall.
Yeah.
So they were, and those were like big changes to Mythic Plus in the context of nothing like that ever happening before that quickly and from season to season. That used to be like an expansion by expansion change.
Yeah, and then we got to like probably the best season in Mythic Plus ever, which was Dragonflight. So it goes to show once again the gearing situation. They have this proven more than once in the past that if they do it right and deliver on it, people will jump on it. And also, the more streamlined the gameplay is, the more successful the gameplay is. And I'm pretty sure they want Mythic Plus to be successful. At this point, we cannot just kick it off as not being one of the core pillars of the end game in World of Warcraft. And I don't know.
Looking like Delves could shape up to be that as well. So they will have to treat us.
I can see it, but you know, So if I want to do some group activity, some small group activity, dungeons will still be the main thing. Clearly. So that would be like the solo shit. You can still do groups in Delves, but I don't feel it's as fun
Delves
as a dungeon.
is like, oh, I want to do some keys with the guys, but they're not online yet. Let me do a delve or two before that happens, right? Yeah. So I think that's fine where it is right now. I think that just needs to be polished, which is fair because Mythic Plus, when it was released in Legion, was a whole different system than we have right now. So it was polished eventually, reading the way it was in whenever it was introduced in vanilla. It's not what we have right now. So we know that these systems get better and better as the patches go on and as they learn, because you cannot really have a perfect out off the bat. You will iterate on it. So I think it's very promising so long as they constantly work on it and they keep it they keep it consistent.
They keep it consistent is the key frame here, Flame. Now we kind of like wrapped it up. It's like if you guys have any like questions or whatever right now, just throw them in the chat. Once again, when we do these wrap-up shows, we're more focused on the topics at hand, not really paying attention that much to chat, although we are aware.
We see you there, but we cannot really interact that much.
Yeah. We like, again, and if you have like any ideas or questions, now is the time to do it. We usually take this at the end of the show.
So hit it up. We have a couple to start with. Arja's done a good job at
we have Arja on the Arja, goddammit, I didn't know.
First of all, we missed a sub on Twitch from Banana Jack 33 for 2 months.
Thank you.
Prime. Appreciate you, buddy. You rock, brother. And there's a question on gearing that I definitely want to address. It's from Sim Ben. What do y'all think if they made gear like Bullion, where it's 1 out of 14 and you need certain crests to get to mythic level? With the Awakened season where you could just buy the entire loot table with Bullion and it's the exact same item. What do we think? Well, we've been proposing this for years.
Exactly. We've been saying this a lot, and I think it's also in the video, right?
It's also in the
Sunday.
video. Yeah. It's something that we've been talking about and suggesting since BFA, actually, whenever we said the gear vendors. And it's not something that's uniquely to us. We're not like the sole proprietors of this idea.
No, not at all. This was in the game at some point. This was in the game in Burning Crusade. This was in the game in Wrath of the Lich King. So
I haven't heard of a single negative opinion of Bullions and the equivalent, the Bloons back in Shadowlands, because Bullions wasn't the first version of this.
Yeah.
I think Bullions were a better implemented versions because you can also
wasn't Dinars in
Dinars. Yeah, I don't know the Bloons. Dinars.
Yeah.
But the cool part about the bullion system is that you could also buy transmogs, the whole raid transmogs with them, and that was unique. Well, I think only weapons.
Yeah, we always say that, like, okay, you can get gift, but if you add,
I farmed transmogs.
Yeah, I know, because once again, this is another like super topic with just multiple times, time and time again. Give people more transmogable options. Get them to get them and have them, because like customizability is a big thing.
Yeah, it's
when they're gonna learn.
I mean, they learn. They learn
tier
with
2. Look at the fucking
exactly the
hype on
anniversary.
tier 2.
They know. Look at how many transmogs we have with the anniversary. So many, almost probably I dare say the entire classic pool, or at least the entire classic end pool. And we get every week we get like a new time walking. It's now, instead of being like once or twice per month, it's every week now, and people do the shit out of it and they farm the shit out of it, so they know. And to your point, Sim, and to the point that if you are really curious, just watch our Sunday video about this. The anniversary is a clear indication that they know we want this, because they've put this into the BlackRock Dead's vendor, where you have the entire loot pool.
Oh yeah,
loot table
really good
in
point.
an entire vendor, and they've added a lot of other pain points that people, I'm not gonna keep saying us, but people have been pointing out about the problems with the rating and the actual BlackRock Dead, so they are aware of it. I still think they probably don't want to implement it, and I don't think they should implement it on a one-by-one comparison, because then it becomes a little bit too much. You still need to have a little bit of RNG, because that cool moment is like, oh, it dropped. Ah, that's so cool. I finally get it. But
deterministic, baby.
The problem with that is that it's still not going to be what they wanted, because we know that Ian made an interview back in BFA that we know it's probably still going to hold true. The reason why they love Titan Forging is because it gives you that dopamine hit when you get that. Oh,
I know.
Whoa!
I know.
But you're never gonna have this while you have tracked items that have multiple versions of it, and you're never really gonna. Maybe you feel that way, but you don't feel it unless it's like a Myth 6 out of 6. Unless you know, oh my god, this is the final version of the item that's gonna give me what I want.
And it kind of goes to the point of Defrosty Warcraft, who says like the downside from a business standpoint is that if you get BIS loot fast, then you quit more. You don't play as much. Let's just
the
put
engagement
it like that.
metrics are gonna be very bad if that happens. But that's with heavy implications that, like you're saying, that we don't play alts. But that's exactly what we've been talking about. Like, where is the barrier supposed to be? Are we supposed to finish our BIS by the end of the season to maximize the engagement metric and how much we spend on one character? That means there's like 0 alt friendliness. We do zero other content.
But I think this should be a push. So like the system that they put in the faded ones, were pretty decent, I would say.
I don't think it was possible to get everything anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Because you still, there was still a pretty big grind to do the content in order to get them. Plus, you had the chance to get the drop from the raids, right?
It was bad luck protection.
It was, basically
and
that.
Even if you got it with the bullions, you still had to upgrade it.
Yeah, and like that, you cannot call that like proper gear vendor, but battle luck protection, catching up, really good, right?
And the fun part was that it was only one item track.
Oh yeah,
you can get it from normal, but in order to get it to like 14 out of 14 awakened or whatever it was, you need to take a long.
Dude, they did that with the actual legendary as well. Like you started with the legendary pretty piss poor, and you had to like upgrade and upgrade and upgrade. So they clearly have the tech to have like one fucking item, and you just use that item to get from like veteran to champion to hero to blah blah, like all in one go. You don't have to like farm the multiple same item over and over again. What do you guys think about the new affix that cut off time?
The Challenger Sparrow.
Listen,
it's a difficult.
We both are on the same boat here. You said it in the video. We talked about this multiple times. This shouldn't be a timer.
It's the problem is that it doesn't come in a vacuum. It's in and of itself. If you think about the concept of a challenged timed content, it makes sense. Play better and you get rewarded, but you don't, right?
Yep.
Because the reward is the same. You just miss out on reward if you fuck up. You don't get more reward if you play good. It doesn't have an upside to being played right. Because when the reward is the content that you normally do, that's not. When you're going to a dungeon expecting to loot 2 items for 5 people, all of the affixes that make it more challenging don't increase the reward. The reward is the same, but the challenge increases. So when you do the affix, whether it's Challenger's Pearl or any other affix, you don't increase your chance at a better reward. You just get the same thing, but you risk losing a lot more. And you lose this, and you lose the key if the dungeon fails, and you lose there's way too many punishing
and
flares.
Also, Horde has a good point, because since this affix here, people just leave dungeons after one wipe. because they know it's so punishing to die.
And even if and
Much
the,
more punishing.
the protection that they did with like you get like what 4 free deaths or whatever, or 2 free deaths, and it only counts after that.
I'm sorry,
It's
that's not it.
It's
That's not
way
it, Chief.
too many.
There's different ways to make it competitive and skill ceiling wise than a timer. So I think like I feel it's so not modern, out of date with the timer thing. It should just go away.
It's not consistent with the other WoW content. It's no other content is timed. And
But what are they gonna do with the MDI if they're not gonna time? How are you gonna measure MDI?
MDI could be the only timed content. That's like I don't understand. Okay,
Yes.
so maybe this is out of pocket, but answer me this: would you be interested in saying, let's say, in the middle of the season, an esports with rating where the fastest kill wins, as opposed to just seeing how quickly you can kill?
No,
Like,
raid, not really.
Like how fast can you kill the raid or whatever?
Raid is a different beast because that involves a lot more people. It's like multiple bosses. Like
Sure.
I like to see like challenges and pro players pushing it out in terms of like speed. That's a different thing. Maybe just add different brackets of Mythic Plus. Have your brackets with timers. Have your brackets with non-timers, but add more difficulty to them. But this penalization all the time just feels worse and worse and worse all the goddamn time. So I'm not fucking with it at all. I know a lot of people are saying a lot of things. It's like now I cannot keep up with everything. Unrelated to the stream, but video related. Been really enjoying the latest where you lads are discussing your favorite specs. Great to see you both in more videos. Oh, thank you, Arja.
Appreciate it.
Sometimes we tend to agree on things. It doesn't happen often.
That's true.
But that's
Actually, that's true now.
Yeah. I get like when we're talking about affixes that affect timers, I would just say attack the root of the problem. Timers are bullshit.
I think
you make it challenging if you want to make it challenging, and they have been incrementally more and more made it more challenging. Just push on that challenge even further. Add even more casts. Add fucking trillions of abilities. Plates all over the place. Remove the timer. That's it.
It feels more and more like they just don't value, which sounds very insincere. They just don't value our time. They don't value what it takes to be able to clear a +10, a +11, even a +8 or a 7. It takes time, and I feel like that has to be the barrier of entry. I dedicate myself 30 minutes, 35 minutes to clearing this dungeon, and that is the price I pay for the content, because at the end, if the dungeon is not supposed to be the fun reward in and of itself because it's timed, because it's an investment, then that needs to be rewarded. And I'm already punished for losing that time, because if you fail the key, you lose the rewards, automatically the time is a byproduct lost as well. So that's extra punishing. So either remove the timer or make put the timer in, but then just don't scale the reward upwards, but don't scale it down either. So not only if you fail the time, the reward scales down, but
preach.
It should stay the same. I didn't finish in time, I don't get to lose, but I don't get to gain either.
Yeah.
It should be like a net gain, because then you stop hopefully some of these levers and
also like levers don't get shit. There's nothing. They don't have any repercussions for leaving a Mythic Plus, which is weird at this point. Like, you get that if you leave a fucking random battleground. You get that
if you leave a raid,
like
an
an LFG.
Or
how in the
heroic
fuck
dungeon.
you would not have any type of punishment for somebody who leaves a Mythic
that
Plus
is
key?
way more commitment based, way more restrictive,
Exactly.
and way more punishing for everybody else involved. You get punished for leaving acute content that you can be replaced in, but you don't get punished in the content that you cannot be replaced in, because what this does is promote pre-made play, which that is fair, but it's not consistent with the rest of the game design. You're either promoting solo play and devoid of restrictions of finding a group, or you're promoting pre-made play. One of these don't go with each other. So if
we're
you're
past that point, buddy. We're past that point. They introduce so many systems to like instance with other players.
But that's what I mean. Like, it's not consistent with what they're designing the game, because Mythic Plus, like, rating is a content that promotes pre-made play, Mythic rating that is, but it doesn't punish you. Like, if you fail to kill a boss, you're not booted to heroic.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a good analogy, which is, man, we're talking all that video. I don't want to spoil that video because it's so good, goddamn. But it's a good point. All right, let's wrap it up. Thank you.
Wrap up.
Thank you, everyone, for joining. First of all, it's been amazing to have so many folks on, especially on YouTube and with the chats and everything. Remember, this show is on a weekly basis. We're talking shop everything that we found of interest in World of Warcraft every Thursday from 10 a.m. PST and 7 p.m. CET. Hey man, I remember this all the goddamn time.
I don't know what the fuck those words mean.
It's been always a blast to do these and have a chat with you guys. I feel like when discussions evolve naturally and organically and towards
to make for interesting time.
Yeah, definitely. And I hope everybody understands, as we understand, when you guys come with ideas and criticize the game, is basically from a place of love. Like, we want the game to be good just as much as you want the game to be good. So it's all a matter of I don't know, saying on the same page, but maybe saying stuff with different words. Because I think, like, people say
words are important.
Yeah. People who say, like, oh, remove timers, or remove the depleting aspect of, or stop with the punishment, all of that. It's you want the game to be good.
They're communicating something. Maybe they don't have the right solution, but they're saying, like, hey, there's a problem here.
Yeah, exactly. And anyways, thank you guys. Once
Appreciate
again,
it.
Have a great day, evening, night, wherever you are, and we shall catch part of you tomorrow with Flame streaming from the morning hours.
It's going to be a little bit earlier tomorrow, so stay tuned. Hopefully we catch some US people.
Yeah, and in this format, we're going to meet up next week at the same hour, same place. Bye! Peace! I'm not doing that again.
I bet. I'm not.